Hello and welcome to Diegetic Advancement. My name's Riley, and today I wanted to talk about phase combat and initiative in OD&D and using BX or AD&D or some other game rules in OD&D by mistake. So I got two stories that I'm going to try and get through nice and quickly. So just the other day in Discord, we were talking about grappling in OD&D, and there's an example in Strategic Review Volume 1, Issue 2, where Gary provides an example combat. The question, it's in the frequently asked question section, has nothing to do with grappling, and there's no grappling rules in OD&D, and yet the combat example decides to show a group of orcs surprising a single character of much higher level than the orcs, and them deciding to try and grapple, and it presents some sort of system for this, which is very interesting. But the orcs surprise the player character, and they move up to the player and do not attack. And that struck me and some other people as odd. But surely enough, Book 3 of OD&D has the rules for surprise, and you can either move, flee, cast a spell, or attack. You cannot do two of those things. You can only do one. So the only way that you could attack if you score surprise is with a ranged weapon, or if the encounter distance was determined as 10 feet. So kind of interesting. But my BXism, I guess, thought, well, of course you can take a full round of actions as you normally would. Because it kind of begs the question of, can you move and attack? If you look at chainmail, obviously you can. That's kind of the system that tells you to use. So my ruling is still, I don't think there's any confusion there. But it kind of gives you makes you think about making sure that you're not misinterpreting rules or bringing stuff in from other systems. Of course, the world's not going to end if you do that, but just something to be wary of, I suppose. And if you've got any similar stories, I'd love to know. So call in and share them. But that leads me to kind of the actual topic of, in my most recent game, we were playing, players enter a room, they encounter 15 giant rats. Not a good sign for the players. And then the rats win initiative. So they move in and intend to melee. I think I might have resolved the melee straight away, which I think was a mistake from me. I should be running phased combat where the winner of initiative moves, and then there's a counter move, and then missiles, and then back and forth between each phase, swapping between initiative winners. But for the most part, it doesn't really matter because they were going to move and attack anyway. But then the players decided, well, we want to retreat. And so I said, well, no, you can't retreat. You can retreat on the next turn. And if you win initiative, you'll get away. If you lose, you'll move, but you'll get meleeed again. But thinking about that, is there a rule for that in OD&D or in Chainmail? Because I think that's relevant if you're running at least the 3 books OD&D. Well, there really isn't a combat system in OD&D. So... it tells you to use chainmail, right? And I don't think there is. I don't think there is anything that says that you have to declare melee movement or even spells prior to initiative in 3 brown books, in the 3 little brown books. So I think in the future... And so, basically my interpretation was coming from BX, where that is a requirement. Now, I just did a quick check through Chainmail, and I can't see anywhere where you would not be allowed to move out of melee. I think the intention is that you certainly can't do that. That's fairly typical for wargaming, is that's the case. But I think for the purposes of this, of this situation and my game, I don't see why I wouldn't let the players retreat on that first turn. Now, with some caveats, I think. If they retreat, the opponents are still going to get their round of melee, and it must be the entire party, at least, retreating. Well, no, it doesn't have to be. But if the front line retreats and the opponent had enough movement to instead go through the front line and attack the back line, the magic users, for example, and the front line retreats, well, they're going to follow through and instead attack the magic users rather than get that passing attack on the fleeing fighter. And so the magic users will probably want to run as well. I think that's okay. It doesn't, that way I'm not giving an advantage to the player characters in terms of being able to win the combat by just like retreating at anytime a melee kind of occurs that's not in their favor. They can just kind of retreat and start the combat up again. It does help them in terms of maybe surviving a combat, because they avoid the chance of having a second melee, suffering a second melee attack if they lose that second round initiative. I don't think that's a massive issue. And I guess there's some precedent as well, right? So if you look at chainmail, there are two things where this kind of comes up. If you have archers or ranged troops interspersed with melee troops, when they get charged, the ranged troops can fall back, and the melee troops kind of move forward to intercept that charge. Interesting rule for perhaps protecting your magic users. And so there is kind of this idea that you can retreat. Also, there's a morale check from being charged by cavalry, and I think maybe a special type of troop, one of Gary's favorites. And one of those is you retreat, right? So no melee kind of happens. Although if the cavalry have enough movement, they will follow you in that retreat and do a melee. Now these retreats actually avoid a melee attack at all, obviously. So I'm somewhere in the middle there. But yeah, I think I'm probably babbling on at this point, and I've made my point. Okay, yeah, actually I just scrolled. Troops forced back in retreat or with backs to the enemy must remain unmoved. Oh no, that's about morale, basically, I think, for retreating. So yes, I think in the future, my intention for this situation is to allow players to move even on that first turn, with some caveats that they will suffer an attack, or if the opponent can instead get to the back line because of that retreat, then they'll do that instead. And then I guess I need to keep reviewing the rules to make sure I'm not bringing in rules from different games, or at least be aware that I'm doing that and be okay with it. So with that, I'll leave you there. If you've got any information on how this is actually meant to be handled in OD&D, if it is detailed somewhere, please call in and let me know. If you've got a different ruling, call in, let me know, or similar examples. Also, details to do that will be in the show notes, and I'll leave it there. So bye for now.